buy local is my slogan, and it is just a bit of temporizing. I want you to know that. And I argue and suggest that near is better than far, that small beats big, and simple beats complex. And in the footnotes, 5-point type, Helvetica, there is this personal is better than corporate and physical than abstract, brought to you by yournews.com, 800-8949, the number you hear all day long, 800-8949. You hear 3 hours to Sean Hannity and wake up in the morning and call 800-8949. Maybe I can solve your problem. If you have a problem, maybe a discussion with me will solve it. I had a gentleman whom I've interviewed before say that he heard our discussion about the driver's license statute and the overbroad enforcement of it, violating the spirit of Martin Luther King, by the way. And he said that the discussion, that, as it turns out, with the Nome of Strawberry Plains, this very happy, carefree, and senior carpenter in Strawberry Plains, turned his whole understanding upside down, because he had been working on a research project, and the discussion that he had it kind of bowled him over and had a remarkable application to his own thinking. And so we are trying to solve problems not necessarily of that kind, but nonetheless problems that you might have. And I'm not Ann Landers, but so I don't know that I can help you with personal problems, but problems that deal with your investing, your government, your outer life, your public life. What about this ban on panhandling? What do you say about that? And here we have a story in the news cycle this morning about students that have gone to see Bo Watson and other legislators in Nashville yesterday, and they're pleading for reasonable gun limits. They want to solve a problem. They want to solve a problem by creating a prohibition. Americans are so childish. They're the most childish people. When there's a problem, we need to have a prohibition. We have the Christian teetotalers back in the during the World War I, winning a revision in the Constitution to ban the consumption of alcohol. I mean, can you believe that? Maybe they had some devout ideas, but they were clearly not biblical in their understanding of the use of the fermented grape, which is not lawless at all. And while alcohol and wine may be attended with abuse, so is making love. I mean, look at all the people who have illicit sex. Look at all the people who are involved in sodomy. I mean, there's the sexual act turned on its head, turned, you might say, inside out, front end, back, and so on. Just because you have something that's good, made by God to be good, doesn't mean that it's going to be free from the vice and misuse of it. All good things are perverted in some way or another. Students from several schools went to Nashville, according to the Chattanooga Time Free Press, kind of a long story. I mean, I thought maybe overlong story about that, and they were asking people such as Bo Watson, can you please help us? Can we save our lives while passing a bill that is reasonable bill, ban assault style weapons and ban bump stocks, put armed cops in every school. These are the kinds of things that these students want, and also we want you, when you pass this bill, to make clear that you're defending Second Amendment rights. They want it to be properly packaged, you see, so that people will understand that they are for gun rights. They just want reasonable regulation, right? They're for the fundamental right to bear arms. But remember, the right to bear arms is meant to kill troops and cops. That's why it's in the Constitution, to kill troops wearing red or green and kill cops, right? Whatever their colors, uniforms. That's why guns exist. Guns are in the Constitution because the founders dreaded the state. They dreaded the standing army, which we have. We have a standing army today. We have domestic standing armies. We have municipal corporations with standing armies. I was reading yesterday in the New York Times a story about tested lying by police, a stubborn problem. Tested lying is kind of a joke, right? And that's the term used in-house in the NYPD. Police lying persists even amid an explosion of video evidence that has allowed the public to test officers' credibility. A very gracious headline, a gracious subheadline in the Times, in the New York Times. Well, the young people in Nashville want what the story calls stricter gun laws to combat school violence. So you have a law that's involved in the combat, so that they view these laws as being part of a kind of military operation against an activity combating school violence. So they went to the offices of Gerald McCormick, Rep. Craig Fitzhugh of Ripley, Tennessee, and Senator Bo Watson here from here in the Hickson area. They're encouraging legislators to vote against HB 2208, which would allow, with probably overly obsequious, overly demanding training of teachers, to have them armed if they want to be, right? Volunteers to be armed. And the goal, says one of the people quoted in the TFP story, is to get the message across that we don't want the bill that is proposing to arm teachers to pass, and also getting the experience of talking to legislators. And that's Lauren Tolbert, a junior at Chattanooga School for Arts and Sciences. It's important to see how you interact with representatives and their staffers, she says, and so on. The meeting with Watson, we're told in the TFP, goes for 45 minutes. And Bo Watson is very, very gracious, and of course he's there to listen. That's what he's there for. And it's not just for show. He genuinely wants to hear what they have to say and to see where they're coming from. 5 policy points included a ban on assault weapons, which of course is unconstitutional, bump stocks, universal background checks, creating red flag laws. Again, giving more power to the centralized administrative deity that we call the modern state, creating red flag laws, funding gun violence research, right, to make sure that we have more junk science about firearms, and making sure that the junk science does not include the many more instances where the presence of an arm has reduced the threat to nothing and pacified the would-be aggressor. And also, of course, they are against Army teachers. Now, Army teachers is something that Sheriff Jim Hammond has tenderly proposed. He's saying it's the least expensive proposition and the most reasonable, since we have thousands and thousands of people in Hamilton County who love guns, who appreciate guns, who are not intimidated by them, who know how to use them, men and women, males and females, right? And so what I want to ask is, unless you want to ask me something first, is how bad a law do these young people want to have passed? Do they not know that we have already in Tennessee a vague gun law? It's so vague, and it's part of a tyrannical ban on the right of arms that came from the hatred of the white man against the black man. And I think it's important to put it that way as we consider today and yesterday the CIA assassination of Martin Luther King, and his death as a civil rights figure, seeking to liberate his people from a legal and political establishment created largely on racial animus, a holdover from the slave days. The war of northern aggression did not end the low regard whites felt for blacks, and in the case of many, the hatred that whites grew to feel against blacks, especially under Reconstruction, where the whites were disenfranchised and the blacks were given all kinds of rights and privileges for which they had not been trained. They had not been trained in chattel slavery to assume independence, and so they were badly equipped as a people. They were ill-educated, largely, not thinking in terms of capital, not thinking in terms of the Protestant work ethic, right, which has enriched Western civilization since the 1500s, according to Franz Weber's great sociological treatise on that point. The laws in Tennessee these students want are not enough. And let me just suggest to you how the law we have, it's in Title 39-17-1307. But this statute is not only racist, okay, it's not only against blacks, it's the following. It's tyrannical over all. If you, my listener, want to tyrannize over one group of people, and you want it to be done in a holy and righteous fashion, well, before too long, you too will be the subject of it. If you want to have a border wall, if you want to have a police state on the border, which a lot of conservatives and Republicans do, to empower the federal government, to make sure our laws are defended, they say, well, you're going to be the subject of the whimsical treatment, the impersonal, blind, unconstitutional treatment of federal officers. And as I mentioned that, I think immediately of the border checkpoints, 400 miles from the border on desert highways. You're driving along the highway, you're heading north or you're heading south. You're 400 miles from the border, and suddenly you run into a checkpoint, and you have to show your papers and prove you're a citizen. Right? That's what that's all about. And which something the conservatives are very glad to have done. Well, if you're gonna have a traffic stop for proving you're a citizen, well, then you're gonna have traffic stops for all kinds of other things as well, which of course we do. And we have in Tennessee numerous unconstitutional executive actions that the Republicans have brought to us, and with the Democrats' consent, that are unconstitutional, plain out unconstitutional. And we talk about roadblocks. I think about the roadblock story that I'm the only journalist probably in the state who's covered it. In really in a way suggestive of the whole, because I don't have manpower to cover it extensively. I'm thinking, oh, if I could just get, for example, the St. Patrick's Day story that is incomplete. I had one story about it and told you about the rules for traffic stops, roadblocks, and what I need to do is have an open records request on was publication made of that roadblock. There were 2 planned on successive Fridays in Chattanooga. Was the minimal requirement from the High Court, was even that followed? The answer is probably no, right, by the Highway Patrol. No. So we're not under law in roadblocks. We're under opinion, a court opinion under State versus Downey and State versus Higgs. And we think we're protected by a High Court opinion that puts down rules on cop roadblocks. Well, those are not even followed. And we've complained in the past about 4th of July roadblocks for which there's not proper notice given. And so we're not under law. We are. These people do what they want. They do what they want. And so we have the court that does what it wants. And we have a vague gun law that has a racist base. And I want to just have. I would like these students to think about do they not want? Don't we have enough? You think if we have a law that's so vague that it is a terror to the people, is that not enough? Is that not enough? 800-8949, 800-8949, brought to you by yournews.com. David Toulis, yournews.com. A person commits an offense who carries with the intent to go armed a firearm or a club. Now, there has to be in all law safeguards for liberty, and that's what does not exist here. Individual rights protection is the only legitimate reason for government to exist. The duty of the court, as of every judicial tribunal, is limited to determining rights of persons to property. That's Tyler versus Judges of the Court of Registration, 1900. And here's this from the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals, 1973. It is the duty of court to be watchful for the constitutional rights of the citizen and against any stealthy encroachment thereon. Their motto should be obsta principis, State versus Williams. And then in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Of course, these white people did not apply this to the black men who had a soul too. They rejected the scriptural rules on slavery. That among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So governments are there to secure rights, not to prevent their security. And that's what has happened in our courts in many areas. And that's why we need to have, and I propose, local economy solutions. We have to get around these courts. We have to get around illegal laws that are protected and defended, such as the intent to go armed statute. In American law, the statutes are void for vagueness, and then they're unenforceable Well, vagueness means that they're impossible for the average citizen to understand. Criminal laws which do not state explicitly and definitely what is punishable, for example, are void for vagueness when the average citizen cannot determine what conduct is prohibited, but must guess at the meaning and differ as to its application. The statute is void and violates the first essential due process of law under the 14th Amendment. So we have a due process right. And if a statute is vague, your rights for due process to be properly notified, right, in this case, to be notified by the law what you can do and what you cannot do. If you can't determine what your duty is or what the ban is, it's unconstitutional. And we have in Tennessee a gun law that's so vague that obedience is impossible. We have in Tennessee a total gun ban. Just so you know, it's a total gun ban with exceptions, right? And these exceptions are called defenses. So you can be charged at any time for violating the gun laws in Tennessee. There's a total ban. But the legislature, in its wisdom over the years, has granted what are called defenses. They're called defenses. So you'll be charged, but you have a defense. Well, I had a permit. Or, well, the gun was in my house. Or, well, the gun was a long gun and not a short gun. And so to ensure that the legislature speaks with clarity when marking the boundaries of criminal conduct, courts must decline to impose punishment for actions that are not plainly and unmistakably prohibited or prescribed. Right? If it's not plainly or unmistakably prohibited, it has to be stricken. And the law again says a person commits an offense who carries with the intent to go armed a firearm or club. And the great problem here is what is wrong. If I carry a handgun in my jacket, I obviously I intend to carry it because I put it there. Right now, I'm going somewhere. Am I intending to commit a crime? Is that when it becomes illegal, or is just having it illegal? How can it be illegal if I have a right to it? If I have a right under the Constitution to it? Now, the legislature has the right to regulate the wearing of arms, but it hasn't done that. It has instead created a ban with defenses. That's what it's done. It has created a ban with defenses. So what about the word carries or carry with the intent to go on? These terms are not defined in the code. What about the intent to go on? What does that mean? As I'm asking. Well, it's describing a culpable or guilty mental state. Now, these students are asking Bo Watson for tougher, reasonable laws. They need to think about what they're really asking for. The law that we have now involves a culpable or guilty mental state or attitude for which there really is no understanding. How can a person of average intelligence know how to avoid breaking that law? I mean, how do you know when you have the intention to go on? How do you know? Is it because you're committing a crime that you're intending to go on, or just intending to go on, period, because you have a right to carry it? So the word carry, now here we have another problem. The Constitution allows for the regulation of the wearing. But here, carry is to have or bear upon or about one's person as a watch or a weapon. The definition is in agreement with Article 1 of Section 26 of the constitutional phrase, the wearing of arms. The common man, however, now with ordinary intelligence can most likely discern the meaning of the word carries or carry in the similar constitutional term wearing to be the holstering or bearing of a weapon on one's person. However, the term carries in practice in our statute has been broadened. Okay, so it's not just the wearing that's in view here, but people who have guns in their cars without a permit, or people who have a gun. If you have a gun in a car under our new law, the car that you don't own, you're guilty. Okay, you can be found guilty and prosecuted for having a gun in a car that's titled to your wife. Okay, if you're driving your daughter's car and you don't have a permit to carry, and you put that pistol under the seat, you are violating the law. Do you know that? This is what these students want. Is this what the students really want to have as an outcome? So what if you have a gun in a box or a saddlebag or something that's like in a cooler, right? In the Hirsch case, Jay Hirsch had a small revolver in a cooler in a large cab of a pickup truck on the opposite side of the bench. So how do you know what is mean? What is the precise meaning of carry? Is it wearing it, or is it having it near you? I mean, see here we have, since there are no definitions, we have a problem. It's called a due process problem. The aforesaid charging statute is without statute definitions, is ambiguous, and It's vague. There are two possible meanings, and we have confusion here. And so what is, again, the whole idea of intent going, that is so confusing. Again, are you intending, if you're on the way to commit a robbery, can you now be charged with an additional count of having the weapon because you intended to go armed to commit a crime? But what if you're just going to the grocery store? Can you be charged with intent to go armed because you knowingly had a weapon on your person? But are you committing a crime by having a gun in your jacket when you go to the Food City in Saudi Arabia? I'd say no, but we have something that's vague and unclear. The property cannot be singled out as evidence of a crime if there is no showing of what was intended, the intended course of action that would be chargeable, and the firearm that was going to be used to accomplish the crime. So if there's no crime in view, how can you be charged with intent to go armed? You see, what's happened is we have reasonable legislation already, and we have these naive students who are full of goodwill. You know, I admire their gusto. I admire that they're making a learning experience in meeting Gerald McCormick and Bo Watson. I think that's good. I'm very, very good. I'm proud of them for having gone there and felt that it's important to go out of their way to have these meetings. On the other hand, I think they're not well informed. The student from Macaulay who's been involved in this is very, very militant about it. But has he not learned from that one-time Presbyterian school about constitutional rights and how constitutional rights belong to minorities and how minorities, especially if they're black, minorities with weapons are viewed scandalously. It is a scandal for any young black man who's past 21 to have a weapon. You're a young black man, if you have any kind of locks or any kind of nice car, and you have a weapon on you, the cop is going to draw on you because he's going to assume that you're a killer. He's going to assume you're a member of a gang. And how does that come? Well, it comes about through many reasons, but one of them is the idea that one looks big at firearms, that one views firearms with a kind of terror, as if they are metaphysically evil. And these young people are saying, well, the idea of having armed teachers is simply wrong because all guns are bad, right? All guns equal violence, violence equals wrong, and wrong is sin. We have to ban that sin by our moral measures, right? We're moralists. We want to impose a moral view of the world by a new bill, a new ban on assault weapons. 800-8949, 800-8949. I can solve your problems. Call me and we'll talk about your situation. And we want to ask you more about, again, about the panhandling ban by Dr. Burrs and Erskine Oglesby coming up tonight for the first reading. What do you think about that? It seems very sketchy to me, and we've given some analysis of the supporting data. Highly wanting. And I think too many people have confidence in Bill. They have confidence in streams of compulsory words, which are, of course, man-made laws. It seems to me that we have God's law, which is very, very liberal and very generous and very minimal. I mean, there's not a lot of it, really, because it envisions a self-governing people. And that's what I would like you to think about. How can you, my listeners, be more self-governing and more prosperous here apart from the good people? David Toulis.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio, Digital FM 95.3.